Hello everyone. Before I start today's video, I just wanted to quickly say thank you. Thank you for all the loving and supportive comments that you've given me on my last video where I spoke about life and the journey so far. I am blessed to see that I'm able to broadcast to the world things that are going through my mind. And to have people like you listening to that, I would say is a privilege that not everybody in today's day and age has. So again, thank you for listening to me and appreciating or resonating with what I have to say. So to just give you a quick update, I, in the past 3 weeks, took a break from YouTube and this algorithmic way of thinking of like, what video should I post next? What type of video would my audience like? I completely detached myself from that. And in the beginning, it was a bit tough, to be honest. My mind always said, hey, it's been 2 weeks since you've not posted a video. It's time to post again. And I said, no, resist that feeling, resist it, stop. I put the business side of things aside and just focused on the art. And I asked myself, what would be interesting? What is it that I truly want to do? And so for the past 3 weeks, I put together a mobile DJ setup, which I will also elaborate on in future videos, which is a setup that you can mount onto a bike. Speakers, laptop, power station, DJ controller, these stands, these speaker stands, I also put them in there. I just crammed them everything in, and I spent like 3 weeks putting all these different parts together, making sure that everything fit. I had to return a couple things, and then I purchased new ones that then fit, and now I have like this mobile power party station, which is pretty crazy, and I'm really excited to test it out. Unfortunately, I do not have a spot yet to crank up the music like loud, but I said, okay, even if the weather's not perfect here in Germany, or even if there's nobody watching, like if I can't gather any friends that would want to go out with me and test this setup, even if I have to play it very quietly, my goal is to just take the bike, put the speakers in there, go to a certain place that I feel like has a nice view. When you put the camera here, you see a nice view behind you, and just play a set outdoors. I think the vibe that you get from that is just so much more authentic and human, rather than pre-recording a set in the studio or just manually putting tracks together in Ableton Live. I feel like it works, but it's just not as fun as being able to make it as dynamic as traveling around, finding new places, inviting some friends to come over, and having like speakers give you this feedback of sound. It's so different, man, to feel sound through speakers, and especially if you're mixing it live, you get a feel for music and how tracks fit together. And that's ultimately the goal that I had for these past 3 weeks. Yeah, and of course I also spent time at Ableton Live just making music every day. And even on the days where I didn't have a lot of time, like, family situation and whatnot, I still managed to spend just a few minutes in Ableton Live and just make music. And even those few minutes, so valuable, man, so valuable. Just chucked in samples, tested out new VSTs, and allowed myself to be creatively free. And from that ability to make music daily a habit, allowing myself to just, sit myself in front of the screen and be free, do whatever it is that I feel curious about, or indulge in whatever I feel like I need to learn, so many more ideas came to mind. So the idea behind today's video is, how can I make a loop sound cool without using the entire loop? How can I process them in a way that really makes them unique to me? And honestly, that process is so gratifying and satisfying, which is why I came up with today's video idea. So again, guys, thank you for watching, and let's dive into today's video. Cheers. Here's just a quick little demo groove that I prepared using a few samples. Sounds nice, but I feel like it's really rigid. There's a lot of detail that's missing, and it doesn't feel human. And instead of just relying on some random top loop that you grab from a sample pack, be like, hey, yeah, let me use this. Let's call it a day. I mean, you can do it, of course. Nobody says that you aren't allowed to do this. But in my opinion, it's just not as satisfying because it's not your own work. It's not you. Your creativity isn't really required. So instead of just dragging and dropping a loop onto the track itself, create a MIDI track. And to do so, you can hit Command-Shift-T. You can use that loop and put it into where it says drop instrument here. And now you can put the loop into slice mode. You can see that there are a few different slicing algorithms that you can use. In this case, we're on transient, meaning that every hit that you see here is recognized as a so-called marker or transient. You can also change the sensitivity, meaning that there will be less slices. And if you have a MIDI keyboard, you could also play in these individual slices, or you could just double click your track and then a MIDI clip is created. Alternative, you can highlight your selection, hit Command-Shift-M. That's also another way of creating a MIDI clip. Draw in random slices and see how that sounds like. You'll have to find wherever the slices are triggered. In this case, they're in this region over here. And this gives you the flexibility of choosing just particular one-shots, for example, a hi-hat within a loop that you like. So you don't have to use the entire loop, maybe just like the hi-hat. And if you don't hear your slices or whatever you're drawing in, you can just hit these headphones and then top left, these blue headphones. And then you'll be able to hear whatever it is that you're currently playing. And again, you can also change the slicing algorithms. You can go to beat, so it slices by every 4th beat or every 16th. You can also change it to region, add the amount of regions that you'd like here, or you could also change it to manual and place your slices manually by hitting double click. But in my opinion, I have the best experience with transient and just dialing down the sensitivity to my liking. You can then choose a top loop or percussion loop, anything that you see fit. For example, this, put it in here, and now you can just draw in your notes. I like this conga over here. And notice how much more of a phrase it becomes. It's like something that you can genuinely sing to. Something that becomes hummable. Bum, 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 bum. And it also makes the track feel a bit more hooky, you know? And you can do this with your percussion, which I find to be great. So slice mode is a fantastic way to get started. And what I love about this is that you can also switch through the samples here using sample similarity swap, or swap to next similar sample, it's what it's called. This is a feature that has been introduced in Live 12. I'm just going to click next, and now he's selected a sample that sounds similar to this one. And I would just scroll through samples endlessly. In some cases, I will just duplicate the layer, right click to freeze and flatten, and then I have my own little custom drum fill here that I can process. Double click and start warping it using the different warping algorithms, maybe turn it to texture, grain size, and do some really crazy stuff here. These tiny little percussion fills in between your main groove that really give the track its life. And as a quick little bonus tip, and I know I've mentioned this in the past before, you don't necessarily need to rely on using MIDI, although I recommend drawing in your own notes because it's always more creative and human. But there are sequencers like Rozzer, Advanced Step Sequencer, which I like using when combining that with the slice mode. You have these individual pitch steps that you can set here, also velocity and all these different parameters. Parameters 1 through 4 are not relevant here because these are for modulation, but the pitch, octave, and velocity, as well as these gate steps, can be quite interesting to create your own unique phrases. Or you could just hit random all here, just random all, and it'll randomize you all the parameters here. Also a nice way to come up with ideas without having to rely on the MIDI clips. Method number 2 is a method that I heavily rely on when it comes to using samples. When I find a sample that I really like from a pack, you know, I don't have to use my own, I can also use other ones like from Sample Market. Now, I kind of like this one because of the percussion that you have in the background. And now, again, I could just drag and drop the loop and call it a day. And it sounds good, wow! But it's not really me, right? In order to make it more like me, we can add a multiband. Just type in multiband and you'll get the multiband dynamics effect. You could alternatively just go into audio effect and it'll be at the top here. Multiband, put it onto your track. Now what you're going to do is solo the higher layer. Then you're going to duplicate that track by hitting Command D. Solo the mid frequencies. Duplicate that track again and solo the lower frequencies. Now what you're going to do is highlight all of these 3 tracks, right click, freeze and flatten. What it's done is it's split you the frequencies into high, mids and lows. So if we solo the top layer here, you can hear just the hi-hats. If you solo the mid layer, we can hear just the percussion and the clap, some hi-hats in between there of course too. And now we hear the lows as well, which is barely noticeable. But this gives you the opportunity to see what's going on. You get to see your hi-hats now, where exactly they're placed. You get to see your claps and your percussions, and you can dissect each and every single individual layer. Let's say you like this particular spot. You can highlight it, hit Command E, maybe put it to the beginning of the phrase. You can hit Option Drag to drag it somewhere else, and Option Shift to scroll within the sample and find a different part that you like. And you can do the same for the top end and the low end as well. Maybe amplify this a bit more. And this gives you also the opportunity to warp each and every single layer differently. So you can make use of the warping algorithms here, which again gives you a ton of flexibility. Or you could just mute out individual layers and just use the top end, for example. Nice. And if you just want the hi-hat, for example, on the top end, you can double click it, highlight the hi-hat, hit Command L, and scroll through your clip. Find your favorite sections here. That's method number 2. Let me just quickly delete these tracks though. And method number 3 is to use the envelope and brush tool in Ableton Live, which I use a lot. I really love it. It's one of the most creative effects that you can possibly think of. Let me just drag and drop another loop. I'm gonna use this conga loop from Tulum. This is how it sounds like, really tribal, cool. But how do I make it strange? How do I make it weird? Now, we could use audio effects, and the stock audio effects are fantastic. There's a lot of different effects that you can use for audio manipulation. Here's a list of my favorite stock Ableton effects. At the top you can see mostly the delay based ones like delay, grain delay, filter delay. In the middle you got some strange ones as well, like beat repeat, echo, chorus ensemble, and at the bottom you got corpus and phaser flanger, which I really do love for some weird stuff. Just try yourself out and yeah, have fun. But for the sake of demonstration, I'm going to use grain delay. So I'm going to cut out all those effects and just stick with grain delay because I feel like it's the weirdest one of them all. Yeah, it's really freaking weird. What you can do is click a certain parameter like frequency. I'm just going to click this. We're going to double click our clip, go into envelopes. And depending on which version of Ableton Live you're using, it should be somewhere here in this panel or here. I think they've moved it a couple times, but in Ableton Live 12, you can find envelopes here. Now you can see it's registered the grain delay frequency here. And what you can do is just start creating your own little automation within the clip. Right? You can do this manually, or alternatively, you can also click B, which is your brush tool, or this pencil tool at the very top right, and start drawing in your own automation. And if you want to have a larger grid size, you can change that either here or hit Command and 2. Command 1 makes the grid smaller, Command 2 makes it larger. So what you can do is then just create your own little automation. If you hit Command, you can draw in a free automation that's off the grid, which is kind of fun. Turn Ableton Live into Paint. So we have a weird automation here. Alternatively, we can also highlight a section, right click, and insert our own shape, which makes it a lot easier. We just drag and drop the endpoints, have some fun, honestly. And the cool thing is that you can do this for third-party plugins as well. For example, you could use a plugin like Echo Boy by Soundtoys, just chuck it onto the track directly, and you can open up the advanced panel here, or the unfold device parameters button. That's what it's called. And in this case, these buttons are already pre-mapped, but if they're not pre-mapped, you just hit configure and just click yourself through the individual buttons on your VST plugin, and then they'll automatically be assigned to this panel down here. You can click a certain parameter you'd like to automate, like the echo mode here, double click your clip again, and you can see, it's already registered it, Echo Boy, echo mode. And now again, we can just draw in our own little weird automation here. So weird, dude. You can create so many weird custom effects and loops and fills. Sometimes I chuck in these loops and then I realize, okay, this doesn't even sound like a percussion loop anymore. It suddenly sounds like a sound that I can use as a fill or as a transition effect. And that's just the beauty of creativity and applying these steps rather than just dragging and dropping a loop and calling it a day. So again, you can just try yourself out, click through anything. You can also click this pitch button over here and draw in a weird pitch automation. Now you don't need to go as crazy as I did here, but this is just fun. Okay guys, thank you so much for watching, and also thank you for your support. If you enjoyed this content, feel free to like and subscribe. You can grab these samples on LotusTunes.com. I'll see you in the next video. Bye bye.